launch the poll?
Sorry?
Would you like me to launch the poll to get a response from those that are under 18?
Oh yeah, sure, yes. Totally forgot about that.
Should be pretty quick. So again, no need for you to respond if you're over 18. And there we go. All good.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this second workshop of the Pueblo del Rio Urban Greening Project. If you were here on Tuesday, which I believe all of you were, or most of you were, welcome. Thank you for coming back to us. If some member of the community decides to join, we might jump back to here. But this is our agenda for today. Just a welcome. Ms. Martin is not able to join us today. David will talk a little bit about the wellness station because that's where the redesign will happen. Aaron Thomas is here and he'll talk a bit more about the South Central LA Greening Project and some of the benefits of drought tolerant plants. He might also get a bit into rain gardens. He mentioned that, so you should feel free to do so. We'll talk again about how plants help conserve water. We will also discuss any Los Angeles Department of Water and Power programs to help people save water and save money. We also expanded that section to include some other slides about home construction or renovations. So you may not have seen some of those before. And then lastly, at the end, as David mentioned before we started recording, we will be sharing a draft of our survey that we will be launching pretty soon. It has yet to be approved, but you will all get a chance to look at it and give us any feedback on what we might ask, or let us know what you think. At any moment, please feel free to either raise your hand, use the raise your hand feature if you would like to speak, or write something in the chat box, and either David or I will catch it. Then we'll make sure to answer your question. I do ask that, in the meantime, if you're not going to be speaking, I do ask that you mute yourself so we minimize the level of noise. If there are any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll get started. So we've asked this before, but please raise your hand if you live in Pueblo del Rio. Great, thank you. And raise your hand if you live in the neighborhood around Pueblo del Rio. I don't expect any. All right, great. Thank you, everyone. It's good to know that most of the people who are here live in Pueblo del Rio. Great. And the members of the youth team and the team. Today we have myself and David de la Cruz from the Urban Studio. From Northeast Trees, we have Aaron Thomas. And we also have Maria Arango, who's joining us from faraway lands. It's very nice where she is right now. And our members of the youth team are here as well, 4 of them, I should say. So thank you everyone for joining us. So as you may remember, the Greening Project will redesign the landscaping around the Los Angeles Wellness Station, which is at the corner of 54th and Long Beach. Here you see a Google Maps Street View screenshot of the Wellness Station from 54th Street. This redesign of the garden, or the green space, the garden around it inside the chain link fence, and some of the playground is part of a larger tree planting project in the neighborhood, spearheaded by Northeast Trees. Aaron Thomas talked about it on Tuesday, and he might talk about it more in a bit. But the project very quickly will plant about 100 new trees at Pueblo del Rio and have some redesigns. But also in the neighborhood around Pueblo del Rio, it will plant, I believe, about 665 additional trees, new trees on streets or public roadways. So this is the second workshop. We have, after this one, we have 2 more workshops. They're Tuesday, August 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. and Saturday, August 28th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. All of them have the same Zoom link and password, so you should be able to join very easily. Last week's workshop was about energy conservation, like how plants help us use less energy, and what LADWP programs exist to help people save money and reduce their energy usage. This workshop today will be all about water conservation primarily, and what can be done in order to use less water, both in the home in terms of how to redesign it, but also, let's say, in yards or green spaces, what plants can be used, how can we use, what little water naturally is here in Los Angeles. The next workshops in a week and a half, there we're going to launch the survey, and it'll be ready by then. And David will have, I believe, some sketches or some early drafts of ideas in order to get feedback from people, from the community members about what they would like, what they don't like, what they would like to change, or if there's anything that's missing. The whole point is to get feedback and make sure that the final design will be directly informed and influenced by the survey and the feedback we receive at the workshop. So it's very important that we get your feedback, be as open as possible. We ask you to be open. And also, members of the youth team, if you can talk with your parents, or if you have friends or people neighbors, etc., if you can let them know about the third workshop, that would be great to get the word out. We can talk about this more offline. And now to introduce the Wellness Station, David will share a little bit about the Wellness Station and Ms. Martin and what's going to happen there.
Yes, thanks, Diego. So as part of this larger effort for greening Pueblo del Rio and adding more vegetation, trees, I think one of the goals that we also have is supporting just like the existing assets that are at Pueblo del Rio. And the Wellness Station is just a really important place for people to access resources related to health. In the past, my relationship with Ms. Martin has been really kind of looking up to her as a mentor, as a really strong leader in the community. She's helped support hosting other youth workshops in the past. And so like in our conversations, just kind of when we do interact and when I'm catching up with her, like I've been super interested in bringing in my experience with landscape architecture and figuring out how to support landscape renovations that can really complement the programming that's happening at the Pueblo del Rio Wellness Station. And so just over the past couple of years, we've developed this relationship with Northeast Trees as well, and really figured out how to have us all in communication about improving not only Pueblo del Rio, but the Wellness Station specifically. And so just at the end of last year, Joe, which is one of my colleagues, one of Aaron and Marie's colleagues at Northeast Trees, he is a grant writer for Northeast Trees, and like he pitched the idea of this proposal for landscape renovations and workshops that support energy and water conservation. So those early conversations became this project. We applied to this grant through LADWP, and they liked what we were presenting. We got the support from the local council member's office as well. And so this all is basically the fruit of those conversations and making sure that Ms. Martin's ideas are also realized in improving that site, that wellness station, to really make it as welcoming and as comfortable for those that use the space. So really excited to be able to just kind of put all of those conversations into physical improvements, not only at the wellness station, but at Pueblo del Rio as a whole. So that's a little bit about what you'll see in the next couple of months as we kick off these renovations in the fall, and then also kind of the larger park project in the next 2 years. So yeah.
Great, thank you, David. And it's a little bit of a heads up. I forgot to mention that the third workshop's in 2 weeks. That one, Joe will be there, I believe, at least one of them, but they're going to have a lot more information about how it is you can remain involved with these projects, and in what ways. So it'd be great for you to join us in the workshops in 2 weeks. There are very different opportunities that may show up. We'll talk about some of the possibilities, but there might be other possibilities as well. Great. And now Aaron Thomas of Northeast Trees will introduce himself and discuss a bit the South Central LA Greening Project, connections between water and conservation, and plants, I should say, and water conservation, drought tolerant plants, and maybe rain gardens. Aaron, the floor is yours. I will stop sharing my screen.
Okay, hi, good morning, everyone. So do you want to skip the other PowerPoint that I did last time? And would you guys like me to do this watershed rain garden PowerPoint?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, just give me one quick second to set it up. I'm gonna get rid of the first one here.
Yeah.
And this might be a little bit redundant, Diego, with some of your presentation, but the way I see it is you can't hear this stuff enough times. Okay,
right, and it's probably better for them to hear it from you, who knows far more about it than I do.
All right, we'll see. So can you all see my screen?
Yes.
This is actually a presentation I've done recently for neighborhood council groups who are interested. There's a large interest now in how do we preserve and conserve water in Southern California. And I know Diego's gonna go, oops, sorry, this is going by itself. Let's see, how do I turn that off? I wanna advance these manually. I'm just gonna talk a bit about what are rain gardens and how do we oh shoot, you guys, sorry, technical difficulties. Are you still seeing my screen? You are. Okay. I'm not sure how this works to stop it going by itself.
It might be those 3 dots.
I don't think I know how to stop
And
it. The other option is clicking through it in the program as opposed to starting the presentation is what I would suggest. But
like this?
yeah.
All right, sorry about that, you guys. I know a lot about trees and I'm not very much about technology, but anyway, so we'll just go through it this way. So I wanted to open up the conversation with the youth, the young people and the residents about how do we conserve water in a very kind of simple way, but some of this information, like I said, Diego is going to go through it. How is water used in Southern California? Well, where does it come from? Diego's gonna go through that with you all again. But there's a goal to conserve much more water, even though most of the water in California is used for agriculture, not in the cities. We still have a responsibility as residents, as as people who inhabit this place to save water because it is, there's less and less of it. There's more people and less water. So I want to introduce, if you all don't already know, what is the concept of a watershed? A watershed is a kind of a tricky word. Sometimes when I ask people if they know what is a watershed, they say, oh, is that like a porta potty, a place where you go to the bathroom? Like a little building where there's water? No. A watershed is a term that we use. It's an area, but it's also a process. Basically, it's an area of land where when it rains or whenever there's precipitation, that water collects and comes to a common point. Now, the tricky thing is a watershed can refer to a very small area. It could be, you could say that, for example, Pueblo del Rio is a watershed. When it rains, if you go outside, if it ever rains, you'll see how water moves over the land, into the land, around the land, and then it collects. But it could also refer, a watershed can refer to a very big area of land also. So for example, everything west of the Rocky Mountains is a large watershed. And so the water moves down through across the Western United States in a very specific way. And as Diego will get into, we use that water that comes from as far away as the Rocky Mountain watershed. And we use it here. We capture it through you know, in aqueducts and other infrastructure. So a watershed is just a term that refers to an area where water moves. It could be very small or very large. So here's a local map of, or a map of our local watersheds. So these are some of the main ones in Southern California. So some smaller watersheds will be part of larger watersheds. When I gave this presentation, I was talking to a group from the Highland Park area, and that's kind of northeast of downtown Los Angeles. And so I was letting them know that they belong to a little small watershed called the Arroyo Seco, which is basically near the 110 freeway. But if we're for your purposes, I don't know if you're good with maps, but this blue line is the Los Angeles River. And so the area of South Central LA would fall somewhere in this area. It's probably in the LA Los Angeles River watershed. Now Hollywood and Mid-City belong to the Bayona Creek watershed. That's a separate, if it rains, the water collects in that area and it kind of stays and moves through that area. If it rains for the LA River watershed, it all moves eventually into the river and then down to the port of Los Angeles, Long Beach area. Malibu has its own watershed. So anyway, it's a good way of thinking about your environment is what area of water do you live in? By the way, does anyone ever really stop to think why Pueblo del Rio is called that, is named Pueblo del Rio? Interesting thought, right? I've always wondered because just a little bit of history. The LA River didn't always stay in this area, didn't always run where it runs now. It used to move around quite a bit. And it's changed course several times. They channelized it and filled it with concrete to keep it from moving around. But my thought is that Pueblo del Rio, when it was built, was probably pretty close to the river, LA River. And so that's just another, just so that you get oriented with where you are and how water affects where you live. So here's a diagram of a natural looking watershed. This is what out in the middle of the Sierra Nevadas or somewhere, you know, outside of the city. So it's important to visualize how water moves into the ground, through the ground, across the ground. It's not just the rivers and lakes and streams, right? And sometimes those rivers, lakes, and streams in our part of the of California, they could be dry much of the year because we don't get a whole lot of rain, but there's water going underground that you're not even aware of. But that is all part of the watershed. So here you see this diagram of, precipitation, clouds, rain, whatever come in from the ocean, for example, and then they hit the mountains. And then when the clouds hit the mountains, the water comes down to the ground and they form streams and rivers and lakes, but they also percolate, they go into the soil, they run underground, across the ground. And so watersheds infiltrate. In a natural area, water can infiltrate or absorb into the ground easily. And that's what becomes what we call groundwater. Groundwater is important because we use that, human beings use it. We either drill and create wells. We pump water out of the ground for our use. So the ground is where in Southern California, you actually don't see it, but most of the water we use is stored underground. But other things like plants, trees, animals also use groundwater. So what you don't see is actually a very important part of your environment. Also, an important part of this process is that when water goes into the ground, poisonous things like bacteria or other toxins like even chemicals can be broken down and neutralized, or they get basically it cleans the water as the water goes into the ground, into the soil. And that's also a very important thing to remember, because if we don't let water go into the ground, it stays polluted. It washes across our driveways, our parking lots, our streets, and all that pollution that collects in the streets gets into the water. And then where does that water go? Down a storm drain to the LA River, and then eventually out to the ocean, which is why it's really not a good idea to swim in Santa Monica Bay, especially after it rains and you get a bunch of water that ends up into the ocean from our city, full of bacteria, which can make you very sick, full of chemicals, which can make you very sick. So how do we slow water down and keep it and get it to go into the ground where it can absorb and then get cleaned and purified in the ground? That's one of our thoughts for this morning. Now, last time I talked to you about trees. Trees are an excellent way to slow down water. If it rains, trees can absorb water into their roots, into their leaves, get the water into the ground and keep it there. But there's other things that we can do. Here's a little diagram of how water moves, both in a natural and then in a what we call urban area. So in a natural area, like on the left, where it's not disturbed, the rain or snow are absorbed into the ground, like we just said. And then that water gets cleaned. It becomes groundwater under the ground. It gets cleaned up. However, in urban or cities, we have a problem with, we have a lot of what we call hardscape built areas like buildings, parking lots, driveways, streets, all of those things where the water cannot penetrate. Water cannot just go through concrete. So, like I just said earlier, all that pollution that comes off of the streets and out of our yards and houses build up, and then they wash off and into storm drains and out to the ocean. Yes, even pets can be part of the problem. I know everyone thinks their little dog is so cute, but every time your dog goes poop outside, there's bacteria or other pathogens, things that make you sick, that are in that dog poop. And if it rains, all the dogs around the city of LA, their poop goes into the water and into the ocean. So clean up after your pets. That's one thing. That's an easy way to start right there. So how do we preserve and protect the watershed? Well, first of all, we can reduce the amount of water that we use at home. Even if you live in Pueblo in an apartment, I live in an apartment too. You know what I do? I use a bucket in my shower. So when I have to warm up my shower, instead of letting the shower just run, I keep a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket there, and I fill that up with to warm up my shower, and then I can use that bucket of water to water my plants outside. That's something that everyone can do easily. So we can reduce the amount of water around where we live, like washing your car every day is probably not a good idea. Saving water inside your apartment or your house. We can reduce the amount of contamination that comes from where we live. Like I said, pet waste or using chemicals is probably not a good idea. Like a lot of people use pesticides. If they have a little garden, they want to kill all the insects that they don't like, and they spray chemicals to get rid of those things. All of that kind of thing washes into our watershed and out into the ocean. Obviously, if you're working on a car and you need to get rid of your motor oil, please don't just pour that into a storm drain into the gutter, because that's all of those kind of things that we use in our life can be poisonous and come back to harm us. But we can also increase, by planting trees and native plants, what we call the habitat value, or we can improve our environment just by planting really good, appropriate plants and trees. How do we reduce runoff? We can install solutions that either store, collect, or reuse rainwater. So there's things like that we call rain barrels. Here's a little image of it. Now, I think that DWP at one time used to provide rebates, or you could get these rain barrels through the DWP. Even if they don't provide that service anymore, they're fairly inexpensive and easy to install. I think you can pick one up for less than $100. Now, a rain barrel is basically a big barrel, usually about 50 gallons or more, that you put next to your building, and instead of the water that comes off the roof if it rains going down and going into the out into the street and down a storm drain, you capture that water in the barrel, and then you can use it to water plants later. A cistern is more expensive. That's something you would actually put in the ground, but it's also possible. Rain gardens, which we'll talk more about, are just easy, simple ways of kind of creating a little sunken area in your garden where if it rains, water can collect there and help to irrigate your plants. And then there's things called permeable paving. Right now, for the most part around Pueblo del Rio, you see asphalt or concrete for our streets, for our parking lots. That's not the only way to pave an area. And I would say maybe the challenge here is, how do we work with our housing authority, or maybe the DWP or our local government, to start putting in these things like permeable paving, which are ways that water can actually, you can park on it, you can put a car on it or drive on it, but it allows water to permeate or absorb through it, so that it can go and go back into the ground. We can encourage low water use altogether. So don't wash your car every single day. Less turf, which Diego will get into. Use plants that don't need a whole lot of water. If you have an irrigation system like sprinklers, make sure the sprinkler heads are watering your plants and not watering the sidewalk, which is a common thing you see a lot throughout the city. So here's some just diagrams of what I'm talking about. There's wells or cisterns that can be underground, which are, we call them dry wells. Now this is something that maybe a homeowner who has a little extra money might want to invest in. Not everyone can do this. But if we push our government to provide more resources, maybe this is something that could be installed. Even at Pueblo del Rio, I don't see why the housing authority doesn't look into this kind of project. Like what we may as well capture whatever little water we get and use that water to irrigate our landscapes. The other one is a barrel, like I just described. You can just put a barrel, and that this is cheap and easy. There's really no excuses to not doing this. And maybe you guys can be thinking about, wow, is this something we can do at the wellness center? Can we create a demonstration where we're not only just using native plants and trees and rain gardens, but also capturing whatever little water we have off the roof of that little building? Why not? And then people can do this at home. If you have friends or family who've never heard of this. Now, mind you, if you've ever gone anywhere in the world outside of LA and United States, most people do this in other parts of the world, Mexico, Brazil, Europe, everywhere. It's just common sense. We get very little rain in LA, so we may as well capture and store and reuse every little bit that we can. Now, with a cistern or a rain barrel, it is important to know that you can't just leave an open barrel of water standing next to your building, because there are possible problems with mosquitoes or other insects that can also be a problem. So they have to be covered. They come designed, rain barrels, you can buy them online or whatever. They're already designed to keep mosquitoes from being able to, to get in there. They have to be covered, basically. So you don't want to just grab a random barrel and stick it under your downspout. The downspout is the little drain that comes off of your roof. So when it rains, that downspout usually just goes, down to like the ground and then out to a street. So with the cistern or a rain barrel, you want to make sure it's covered so that mosquitoes can't get in there. You can buy them already pre-made. But then once you have that water stored, you can just, like I said, use that to water your plants. Not for drinking, but just for irrigation. And I wouldn't use it for human use, like washing your clothes or dishes or whatever. Just for irrigating your plants. Now, a rain garden, here's a little side view of what a rain garden could look like. A rain garden, just think of it as a little sunken area in your garden. It's that easy. You don't want it to be too deep, because once again, you don't want water to pool up and be sitting there like a big pool of water. Less than 12 inches is usually enough. It takes very little digging to create a rain garden. And also you want to make sure that wherever you're putting in a rain garden, that it can, the water will actually absorb pretty quickly. Like it shouldn't take more than an hour for the water to go into the ground. So the way to do that is you do a little test. You dig down 12 inches into the ground and fill that little hole with water, and then wait an hour. And if the water's all gone through after an hour, then you have good what we call infiltration, or it's the soil there is able to absorb the water. If it sits there and you dig a little 12 inches hole and you fill it with water and the water does not drain, it's probably not a good location then for a rain garden. Because once again, you don't want, if it rains, you don't want this area to fill up with water, but it won't absorb, because then once again, it becomes a breeding ground for pests, or it could actually damage your plants, because the plants need oxygen. And if it's just all water, then they're gonna drown basically. So the rainwater can be brought into this little sunken landscape area where it can fill in a very shallow temporary pool before it soaks into the ground. So you can bring this water to the rain garden from that downspout, from the building, the roof of the building, and that can be done a number of ways. And you want to make sure you're not creating erosion problems. So there's a little design work, but that's what people like David and Diego are for. Landscape architects, designers know how to do this. safely. Here's kind of an example of the design of what a rain garden could look like. We'll probably draw something like this out. Well, we will definitely draw this out for our project at Pueblo over at the little park that we're going to be improving, and also for the wellness station. You know, we'll create these drawings so we know exactly where is the rain going to collect, what plants do you want to plant up hot on the higher ground. You want plants that are more drought tolerant, but inside the rain garden down at the bottom where water collects, you got to plant things that are able to take that amount of moisture. So, you know, there's thought put into it. They can be done in different sizes and shapes. A rain garden can be planted with shrubs and grasses. There are certain grasses that are very good, for example, with what we call phytoremediation. They can take in chemicals and other pollutants and really break them down. This is kind of a fun activity, like citizen science stuff. You'll get to learn all about microorganisms and how do you like clean the area that you live in using plants and water. But a rain garden could also be just a dry bed, like rocks and what we call cobble pebbles, some little boulders. You know, it's kind of depends on what you want. What is your, you know, what's your objective, or just what do you like to look at? This is going to be fun to design with you guys for the wellness station and at the park improvement. So you can create this sort of on a slope. You can create a little rain garden where you have this berm that slows the water down and captures it. There's many different ways to do this. It's all very low tech though, what we call low impact development. So here's some images. I know this is kind of like, these are like suburban upscale type properties, not exactly the same as the wellness station, but we can make it look very close to this, very much like this. And so here you see, you know, just in a front yard, you can put this little sunken area with the right type of plants. So if it ever rains, the water collects there. It doesn't stay, you're not creating a pond, but you can capture it there. This is a bioswale. Diego's gonna go more into this idea of bioswales as well. But these can be done literally everywhere or anywhere where you have enough room to do it. A rain garden is a very simple and easy way to slow water down, capture it, and use it and reuse that water for irrigation. So then once again, the plants and the trees that you put in the rain garden have all kind of benefits for humans. You can, obviously, you'll create more shade and energy conservation, which you've already talked about. We'll conserve water through planting trees and the right types of native or drought tolerant plants. But these are also beautiful plants, pleasing for you to look at, brings you a little nature right there into your city, and the wildlife, which there still is wildlife all around us, will benefit from these plants, whether it's butterflies, hummingbirds, raccoons, whatever it may be. They rely on these plants for their food and for their homes. So you can make a really beautiful rain garden, and which is good for us in saving water, but also good for the little creatures around us. Now these websites, you're going to be hearing more from Diego about this, so I'll just save this for him to go into. But there's a lot of information on the internet and a lot of programs. But I guess this is my final slide here. I encourage you youth to think big about where you live. You're young and you have a lot of great ideas and energy. You want to learn more. You want to improve where you live. And these are some ways we can help you to do it. Plant trees, create rain gardens, save water where you live. Get your family to be aware of this, because your quality of life will depend on it, especially now, as we're going through climate change, and places like Southern California are just getting drier and hotter. And so water is precious. It is a basic part of our lives. So let's all take care of it. And that's the end of this presentation.
Thanks a lot, Aaron. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or write them in the chat. There were maybe a handful of questions there too. Uciel asked something you referred to earlier. He just wonders what would be an alternative to pesticides.
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of natural ways that you can get rid of pests which don't use chemicals that are dangerous to us. You can use other insects, for example, ladybugs. Everyone loves ladybugs, and they're excellent for killing things like aphids or other insects that might be harming your plants. You can actually buy boxes of them, living ladybugs, and you release them around your plants at night so that they crawl up the plant, and then they eat the aphids and protect your plant. For other insects like snails or slugs, just put a little bowl of beer outside. I know this sounds so stupid and simple, but I know you all are too young to drink. But maybe one of your parents likes to have a beer after work. Just take some of that beer, put it in a little bowl, stick it outside where the snails and the slugs are messing with your plants. And the slugs and the snails are attracted to the sugar in the beer, and they go in there and drown. And it's probably a pretty good way to go. They'll die in a bath of beer. There's a lot of different things you can do. Just washing your plant off with soapy water. Soap, like a nice natural soap would be best. There's many ways to naturally get rid of harmful insects without using pesticides.
Thank you, Aaron. Another question Sandy had, she wonders if you have any recommendations for mosquitoes.
So there are mosquito fish. I mean, if you have like a pond or a pool or something like that, a water fountain or something, there are fish that you can buy that eat mosquitoes. There's also tablets that can be used that you add to the water to get rid of mosquitoes. But the real thing with mosquitoes is they lay their eggs in water, standing water, like stagnant, still water. So as much as you can, don't leave anything where water can collect, even a little empty can, a small, like something that's as small as a coffee can. If enough water gets in it, mosquitoes will be drawn to it and lay eggs there. So just be careful and mindful. I always go around, once again, I live in an apartment, but I do have potted plants, and every now and then I'll just walk around and make sure there's nowhere where the water where water can collect. And just drain it, turn it over, and get rid of the water. Over watering your grass can be a problem, and that's something like for the housing authority to address, where they need to set their irrigation so you don't have saturated too much water, which they shouldn't be doing anyway. Because yeah, mosquitoes can be drawn to lawn areas where there's a lot of mud and water.
There's also plants that help repel mosquitoes. Is that right, Erin? Things like marigolds. I don't know how effective they are, but I think that's something I'm interested in. Just like rosemary, lavender to help.
Yeah, I mean, so all of the answers to all of these things come in nature itself. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about marigolds. There are some very there's a lot of plants that have not just medicinal values, elements in them that have medicine for us, but also can repel insects or other animals. There's a term called allelochemicals, which is plants actually produce their own natural chemicals to defend themselves mostly, but they also can help us as well. So plants have often have like in eucalyptus trees, if you've ever smelled them, there's the mentholatum, which we use for like when we have like asthma or breathing problems. You can inhale that and it really clears out your respiratory system, your lungs. But the oils and the chemicals in those leaves is mostly not for us. It's for those trees do that to repel insects and other things that pests that would normally eat them or harm them. So yeah, just a little bit of research. There's a lot of like information online, obviously, a lot of books out there. It's a fun and healthy way. We should be thinking about like holistically, don't use chemicals, pick up after your pet, don't waste water, capture water, conserve water, clean water, and make it fun. It shouldn't be a drag. It should be like exciting to learn how to do all this in a really healthy way.
Great. Thanks so much, Aaron.
You're welcome. Should I stop sharing my screen now?
Yeah, I can switch over to mine, but thank you again for sharing with us all your knowledge.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone. Great. Again, Aaron, thank you for going into rain gardens and kind of how things can be redesigned. So that's very helpful. Thank you very much. Now we're going to talk a bit more about water and drought, really, and kind of why it is that water conservation is so critical to us here in Los Angeles. As you know, as we've talked about, drought is just any period of time where the conditions are drier than normal. And it could be anywhere from a few weeks, it can be a few years. And just because something is hot and dry doesn't always equal drought. It depends primarily on how much rain and snow fall and how that relates to the historical record. One thing about the historical record, it doesn't go as far as we think or would expect. When it goes back about sometime into like maybe the mid to late 1800s, that's when we started keeping records, and before that there isn't much of a history, at least a written down history, I should say. But going back, the less rainfall and snowfall there is, there's greater chances of drought, which means soil is dry, plants die, and water levels of lakes, reservoirs, wells, they dry up. So there's just less water going around for everyone. Drought conditions here in California have grown in the last 2 years. Here, this map that you've seen, you can see that from May 2019 to May 2021, it went from pretty much only about 2 counties in California being under abnormally dry drought and everybody else being normal, to the majority of California being in an extreme drought condition. And I'm sure it's gotten even drier since then with how hot it's been both in Southern California and elsewhere. We're seeing some of the effects of drought right now with some of the fires up in the San Francisco, in Northern California, not in the Bay Area, I should say. And also in other parts of the US, they've had wildfires in the last few weeks. So some areas have a poor air quality because of that. Between July 2020 and July 2021, LA received about 5.8 inches of rain, which is about 41% of what it would normally receive. But for the 3 years before that, July 2018 to June 2021, Los Angeles received 92% of what is considered normal. So Los Angeles is under a drought right now. I don't know how it's being categorized at the moment. I'm sure it's not a great situation. And as Aaron mentioned, and I've talked about a lot because it's one of the things that I really like, and I'm interested in, just most of LA's water comes from other parts of California. Here, this map that I put here on the left, it shows you the 3 main aqueducts that bring water to Southern California, or Los Angeles specifically. So first you have the California Aqueduct, or the State Water Project, which runs through the Central Valley. If you've ever driven on the 5 freeway on the way to San Francisco or Sacramento, and you've seen a pretty wide channel that's full of water, or a lake, that is the California State Water Project. So that water is going towards Southern California. And that State Water Project begins in far Northern California in Lake Oroville, but it goes down through natural waterways into the San Joaquin, Sacramento River Delta. And then from there, it comes down to Los Angeles. So that's about over 400 miles. Then we have the LA Aqueduct, which is north of here, about 200 miles, up around Mono Lake and the Owens River, and what used to be Owens Lake. That's about the same level as San Jose. So the Southern California, the Bay Area, it's about as far north as that. And the third major aqueduct that brings water to Southern California is the Colorado River Aqueduct, which comes from the Parker Dam south of Las Vegas. And that's also about 200 miles, but that brings water from the whole Colorado River watershed, which extends as far north as Wyoming, Colorado, and other states there in the Rocky Mountains. And if you look in the chat, David brought in the link from the drought.gov, which tracks how drought conditions per county. So LA County is currently in D3 extreme drought, of a portion of LA County in exceptional drought. So check it out. So drought, as we know, extreme drought can lead to major stresses on the water supply system. Choosing between agriculture and providing water to cities, that's something that we've seen in California often, especially this year, where it seems to be like there's like ranchers and farmers want water in order to grow food. Cities need water in order to meet the supply needs of residents, and who wins and who loses is becomes more fraught. So water becomes political in one way. Extreme drought can also lead to wildfires and severe fire conditions. Before this workshop, Davi and I were talking a little bit about fires, because there's some fires in the Pacific Northwest that are affecting the air quality up in Seattle. And here in Los Angeles, that hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure we will have wildfires soon enough. So we're gonna have to deal with severe fire conditions and wildfires, but also here in central LA, far from where the fires are, we're going to have to deal with lower air quality. So that's a side effect of that. There's also the possibility of dust storms. That would be if you're in a rural area. The Dust Bowl was primarily from a series of droughts. What plants use a lot of water? Well, anything that has a lawn. Lawn uses a lot of water. Keeping them green also uses a lot of water, but also chemicals, pesticides, as a way to keep away pests, but also make sure that they're green. The lawn stays green and doesn't turn brown. Other uses, for example, golf courses use a lot of water to stay green. So naturally, if you reduce both the size of the golf courses, or remove them or replace them, and you also replace large lawns, you would save a lot of water, and a lot of pesticides and chemicals will not be going into the ecosystem. So that's one way that we can save water as a region that acknowledges that certain neighborhoods use more water than others based on what's available there. Chiefly golf courses. That's one of my own soapbox moments. So we would conserve a lot more water if we replace lawns and golf courses and change them with Southern California native or drought tolerant plants that do well in this climate. And as an example, Nevada recently, earlier this year, passed a law to remove 1/3 of all grass in Southern Nevada by 2027. And Vegas has been in a drought for 2 decades. So that is a great way to combat this, to ensure that we conserve water by removing ornamental grasses that require a lot of water and make it so that there's less water for people or for other industrial, chemical, or agricultural uses. So how can plants reduce water usage? Drought-tolerant plants and trees are very important in reducing water and energy usage. A lot of water gets used to irrigate private lawns, both front and backyards. But as mentioned, they're water intensive and often have plants that require a lot of water to survive in the dry and hot conditions of Los Angeles. So really what we need to do is change what plants we plant, where we plant them, where we plant trees. They provide shade to homes and to other elements of the house, and how to capture water and filter it. The rain barrels that Aaron mentioned, rain gardens, where you position trees to provide shade. This photo here is of an example of a low water use garden that was installed by Northeast Trees in Florence Firestone. This was provided to me by Joe, who will be speaking at the next workshop. So these plants are designed to withstand drought and heat in in Los Angeles, but also in the urban conditions of Los Angeles. Trees, as we've talked about many times, they help improve air quality. They provide shade to reduce the urban heat island effect. They capture stormwater in their roots, capture carbon. They create habitat for animals. They also, depending on how the position, they can provide shade to a home. Here, this photograph is of a California pepper tree. As you can see, it's providing shade primarily to the doorway and a bit of the garage. I'm sure that maybe at other times it's providing shade to the windows, as you can see there, both the first and second floor. So drought-tolerant plants doesn't mean just replacing lawn with rocks or sand, as many people seem to do. There are many plants that can exist there without having to do what I think it's called xeriscaping. I'm going to write it down in the chat, but that's a way to describe when you replace lawns with, I believe, grasses. And Debbie, always please correct me if I'm ever wrong. Trees, as we've discussed as well, have some social and economic benefits. Reducing stress and agitation. They provide opportunities for people to experience and connect with nature. That's something that's much harder to quantify, but I think it's something that is very important. The element of nature, the element of surprise and imagination, I think that can be great, especially for children or as people are growing up. I think it's very important. Trees can also provide privacy, and they screen or enhance views. So provide a buffer between the home, the windows, and the street or a neighbor. They reduce noise. They kind of break up some of the sound waves. They also increase property values. They lower energy costs, as we've discussed, and they have many benefits that are both economic, but also social and environmental. So they seem to be a win-win-win when you choose an appropriate tree or plant for the region and the climate where it will be planted in. And this is a photo of a bioswale at the parking lot of the Los Angeles Zoo. This is from the LA Creek Freak blog, which is now dormant. And this photo is from 2011, so it's 10 years old now. But this just shows how a bioswale can look. Aaron discussed a bit about bioswales. But bioswales are designed to capture water from the parking lot through gravity. The parking lot is built in a way so that water flows down towards a bioswale or into a channel that feeds into the bioswale. And then the bioswale, with the plants, rocks, and other materials there, the soil, will filter out pollutants and chemicals and will retain the water or bring it down into an aquifer or into the soil to make sure that it doesn't just go untreated into a storm drain and then out into the river and the ocean. Planting native trees and vegetation requires less water, and they are more resilient for prolonged periods of drought. So it's very important that we use those for bioswales. And Aaron discussed this. I'm just going to repeat it because it's one of like my own pet peeves, but our world here in urban areas and cities, they're almost completely covered in materials that don't absorb water, like asphalt or concrete. It just runs off. They have a coefficient of 0 or 0.1. So what it means is that water in the general street here in Los Angeles, water, if when rain falls, it hits the asphalt and it will go straight down into the channel that takes it towards the storm drain. And then it'll just move off right into the ocean. That's why the LA River was channelized, because it flooded, and turning it into a concrete channel and the whole system into a concrete channel meant that you could get water away from cities and into the ocean as fast as possible in order to prevent floods. Right. So as you know, City Plants is one of the programs with the LADWP to provide free trees to residents in the city of Los Angeles. Northeast Trees is one of the partners with City Plants. City Plants offers low water usage trees for residents for either their private property, their yards, etc., or to plant on the public right of way. For example, here between the sidewalk and the curb, if somebody asks for a tree to be planted between or on their yard, in their yard, the property owner or tenant has to plant them themselves. If the tree is going to be planted in the street or between the sidewalk and the curb, then a City Plants partner will plant it for them. But either way, the responsibility of watering and upkeep falls to the adjacent property owner or tenant. The City Plants website, which is here at cityplants.org, has many resources for how to maintain trees, how to care for them, kind of water schedules too. So there's a lot of resources in order for people to make sure that these plants or trees succeed. So, and it obviously can apply to other trees as well. But if you want to learn more, I suggest you go to cityplants.org or call 866-484-0433 for more information. There are other LADWP programs that use plants to conserve water, but as we've discussed, they're primarily aimed at homeowners, or they require the approval of a homeowner. So they're more difficult for tenants to have access to them. But these programs are designed chiefly to replace lawn and turf with native plants and California-friendly plants. And so let's see California-friendly landscaping in Los Angeles website, the hands-on workshops to transform lawns, and then the turf replacement program and turf replacement design services program. The California-friendly landscaping in Los Angeles website is exactly that, just a website with resources of how to design and install California-friendly landscaping, irrigation, what equipment is good, and how to maintain such a garden. It has plant lists based on your interests, which I'll go into later in the next slide. It has examples of garden designs and some sample construction documents for how to plant based on your neighborhood. So the construction plans for places around Pueblo del Rio are different from construction plans for, say, Venice or San Pedro down by the ocean, and that's different from neighborhoods in the San Fernando Valley or near in the hills. So they're all different, but it offers you some samples from which to build on if you wish. And here are some examples of the plant lists that they offer. This is just 6 of the many, many plant lists that they offer. So you can look at California native plants, alternative to lawns, plants that attract hummingbirds or birds or butterflies or hedges. And you can also just search by plant name as well. So it's a very easy to use, user-friendly website. I urge you to use it. One issue that I find with this website is it's available only in English as far as I can tell. So if you know any Spanish speakers or anyone who speaks any language other than English and they need help, somebody would have to help them. But I think this is a great resource for people, and it's just for whatever it is you would like to have, even if it's just plants in pots. The hands-on workshops, they're organized by the LADWP. These are free workshops at private homes where people can participate to learn and practice how to remove turf, install drought-resistant and California native plants, install irrigation, and capture rainwater. The workshops begin again in September, and they're spread out throughout the city of Los Angeles. So some are, San Fernando Valley, or also over by Boyle Heights, the east side, or the west side, or south by Wilmington, San Pedro, or areas around South LA. You can find them, just have to go on their website and look, and I'm sure they're always adding workshops. The website's in both English and Spanish, and it has resources for this too. So if you're a homeowner interested in this, or if you know anybody who's a homeowner interested in this, they can look into it as a way to learn how to do this stuff themselves. The workshops are hosted, as mentioned, on people's private homes. So if you're interested in hosting it, you have to apply and go through a process. And if you just want to attend one, you just have to register for it. And I think the workshops are available in both English and Spanish and maybe other languages, but I would check their website. If you want more information, you can email them, you can call them, you can check out their website for both either hosting a workshop, but also if you have any questions about the program itself. But for this program, you do need to be the homeowner, because it will be, if you're hosting a workshop, this is what's going to happen. What you see in this photo is what's going to happen in your yard. You're going to rip up your yard with other people and install plants and irrigation. So this is for homeowners. This one's also for homeowners. The Turf Replacement Design Program. It's a program to give free landscape design services to replace turf with California-friendly and native plants. It has unique planting and irrigation plans created for the property by this landscape designer. The plans can be directly provided to a contractor for them to install, or they can be given to the homeowner, who will then take them to a contractor for installation. But it does require the applicant, well, first it requires an application, and you must be a homeowner or have the approval of the property owner. And there are many more requirements in order to participate in this program. So if you want to learn more, you should go to their website. It's one of the more intricate programs as far as I can tell. And this image on the left is an example of how a construction document or a diagram would look like. This is a plan view, kind of showing where different elements go: the house, the roof, different plants, each one represented by a different symbol, where trees go, and the expected canopy or width of the tree and the shade they cast. So this is kind of how construction documents look. I know some of you have mentioned that you're aware of this program, but just as a reminder, the LADWP does offer free water conservation items, free shower heads, and bathroom and kitchen faucet aerators. These are, what they do is that they reduce the flow of water, and they simulate the feeling of a higher water pressure. So it even if it's a bit of a cut in terms of how much water is actually coming out, it does conserve water overall. If you're interested in getting some of these items, you can call the LADWP, the phone number on your screen. You can also email them. You have to provide an address, a phone contact, and the number of devices you want and which ones you want. You can also let me or David know, and we can pass that information on to LADWP. So if you want to talk, feel free to stick around after, or you can just email one of us later at any point, and we can connect you with the LADWP in order to get these free items. And I know I don't say this clearly, but they will mail them to your house if you want to. So this is a great program in order to get stuff directly to LADWP customers in order to save on water. Right, there is this program or website called the LADWP Efficient Product Marketplace. We discussed this in the first workshop about energy conservation, but it's just think of it like a shopping website where they list energy efficient appliances, light bulbs, power strips, any item for the home. So it's great resource if you're looking to replace something like a television or refrigerator or air conditioner or washing machine. You can go here. It's run by the LADWP, and if you search for whatever it is you're looking for, let's say a washing machine, it will let you know if, well, one, all the appliances listed are from energy efficient brands, and it also has information on whether they qualify for rebates. So it saves you time instead of thinking whether something will qualify for a rebate, you can go here and see exactly if you can get a rebate. But it also includes products that do not qualify for rebates. So you should look into them. But if you're looking to replace anything, even power strips or light bulbs, I think this is a great place to start. It's very helpful and it's great for shopping. This is the, are there any questions? I know that I kind of went through that a lot before I switch over to the financial assistance programs. Are there any questions? All right. So the financial assistance programs from the LADWP, there are a number of them. Some of them can be combined. This one, the low income discount program, cannot be combined with other programs. This one is based only on the annual gross income of the family based on household size. As you can see on the left, the image shows you the current limits by family size. Customers who apply need to provide a proof of income regularly from everybody in the household, not just the primary breadwinner, but everyone in the house who's working, just to make sure that the family does, or the household does count as low income. For more information, call 1-800-342-5397, or also visit their website at ladwp.com/financial assistance and look for the low income discount program. But as I mentioned, this program cannot be combined with the other financial assistance programs that I will mention right after this. The LADWP also offers the Senior Citizen Disability Lifeline Rate discount. That's for customers who are 62 years of age or older or permanently disabled. This can apply to all other utility bills, not just water and power. So you can use it for gas, you can use it for telephone. You can use it for other ones, which I don't have them listed. But the household income has to be less than $47,300 in the previous year. I'm not sure if that's based on family size. I'll have to look into this. But this does require an application. It requires proof of age, and any copies of bills that want to be covered under this lifeline rate, and proof of income for everybody in the household. This is a program that's run by the city of LA, not the LA Department of Water and Power, so it's slightly different. You need to call the phone number at the bottom for more information. And there's also at the LADWP Financial Assistance website, there's a link to the details for this program. So if you're interested or you think you know someone who could qualify for this, you should let them know or maybe assist them if you feel you can. Other discount programs include the life support equipment discount, which is for households where someone regularly requires using essential life support devices. And that includes electric wheelchairs, respirators, dialysis machines, sleep apnea monitors, and other devices. To see a whole list, go to the financial assistance website for the LADWP, or call 1-800-342-5397 for more information, just in case you know someone who uses equipment, but you're not sure, or they're not sure if they qualify. This one can be combined with some of the other financial assistance programs. The final financial assistance program is the Physician Certified Allowance, which requires a letter from a California certified doctor providing proof that someone in the household is a paraplegic, a quadriplegic, or has a neuromuscular condition or other illnesses or conditions that may be life-threatening. For more information on what qualifies and what would be the process for applying, you can either check out the website at the top or call them at 800-342-5397. The Physician Certified Allowance, the life support equipment discount, and the Senior Citizen Disability Lifeline rate can be combined as far as I know. This was told to me by an LADWP representative, so I believe it's correct. The low income discount program cannot be combined with any of the other ones. And if you want to learn exactly how much you would save, I suggest you call them or check their website and see what they offer. What maybe, or you might not know until you apply, but I would recommend you look and call them at the phone number or check out their website. As you know, the LADWP will help you retire old working refrigerators at no cost and may even offer you a $50 refund. This fridge has to be, I believe, older than 10 years. But if you want to retire it, you can call 1-888-388-6642 for any questions or concerns you have about this program. If you want to schedule it, you call 1-800-246-0441. That is to schedule the pickup by ARCA, who is LADWP's partner in the program. So they are the one that handle everything, and you need to call them in order to schedule the pickup. There is no application needed for retiring this refrigerator or for getting the rebate. It is automatically applied to your account, but I believe you need your account info when you call them to schedule the appointment. You can also exchange an old refrigerator for a new energy saving refrigerator for free. But your old refrigerator has to be 10 years or older. If you're an LADWP, you must be an LADWP customer who receives an income-based discount, which we mentioned earlier, and not have participated in this program previously. So let's say you replaced a fridge 10 years ago under this program, you can't use it again. But if you haven't, you definitely should. And for more information, call 1-800-342-5397 to get more information. Another program that LADWP offers is the Consumer Rebate Program. It provides rebates to residential customers for installing and using energy efficient equipment, such as energy efficient windows, central air conditioning, HVAC, or heat pumps, cool roofs, and whole house fans. Cool roofs, they reflect more of the sun's heat than the regular roof, therefore keeping the house cooler. A whole house fan is exactly what it sounds like. It's a fan that goes up in the attic that runs in order to suck up any hot air and blow it out through the attic, and therefore bring cooler air from the outside. In order to qualify for this rebate program, these items must have been purchased and installed in the last 12 months. And some of these items require permits for installation. So for more information and to learn more about the application process, you can visit ladwp.com/CRP or call 1-800-374-2224 for more information on the requirements and applying. This is for homeowners primarily. Tenants can't participate, but they must have approval by the property owner or the person who is on the LADWP account. There's also the air conditioning optimization program, which provides no-cost central air conditioner tune-up and energy-saving rebates for eligible residential LADWP customers. It provides services by certified professional technicians from approved licensed contractors in Los Angeles, who, if you call them through, if you find this contractor and you go through this program, they will come over and provide analyze your cooling system and provide basic maintenance and efficiency tests at no cost to you, or maybe low cost. I believe it's no cost. Some of the services they offer includes replacing air filters and refrigerant, which is actually what this photo is showing. They're recharging the system. They'll clean parts. They will run diagnostic tests. This program also offers rebates for replacing old systems or parts with new energy efficient ones. And it does not require an application. All you have to do is call or check the website in order to access this program. If you're a tenant, you can't participate. Oh, if you're a tenant, you can participate, but again, you must have the approval of the property owner and / person on the LADWP account. And if you have an air conditioning system, it must be older, must be more than 1 year old, and size between 1 and 10 tons. So I believe that covers most houses in Los Angeles. And it can't have been serviced by the LADWP in the last 2 years. So you can't call them every 6 months and get free service. You have to wait every few years in order to qualify for this program. There's also the Home Energy Improvement Program, which provides free energy efficient upgrades for homes. This is through the LADWP. If you qualify for this program, an LADWP technician will come and assess the home or the building, the property, and determine the most appropriate and effective improvements possible to conserve water and energy there in the house. And if the property owner agrees, the repairs can also be performed by LADWP technicians. Here in this photo, it's somebody from the LADWP holding what looks like, oh, that's installation. So those are just an example of some of the repairs they will do. They also, I think, can replace windows and offer some other options for you. But it does require an application. And as mentioned earlier, with some of the other similar programs, tenants can participate, but again, they must have the approval by the property owner or the person on the LADWP account. I know this is pretty fast, but are there any questions about the any of the programs that I've mentioned so far? All right. Seeing that, we are now going to switch over to talking about the survey and showing you the draft. So I'm going to stop the recording, and Davi will share his screen, I believe.